What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Rams Brothers. I'm your host, Dean, and I'm joined by my brother and the other host of this show, Nick. And Nick, you're in a Donkey Kong sweatshirt today. I'm assuming celebrating the end of the season?
No, just completely coincidence. I guess I just went full Nintendo today.
You got your
started from the
threefold,
bottom.
fourfold Nintendo socks, hat, shirt, and Mario Golf poster in the background.
Yeah. I don't know. I was just feeling it today. Nintendo World opened last night, so that's been on the front of my mind. I'm trying to find a good time to go over there because I think that's going to be just the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, it will be an immersive experience, similar to when we got to step on the turf at SoFi. Very, very immersive. You feel like you're part of the culture. You feel like you're part of the brand in those kind of moments too. So yeah, I totally understand. Absolutely.
Yeah, when Kevin Demoff invited me and you, brothers, the pod, to visit SoFi together, throw some touchdowns to try out for third string. It was pretty cool. That was a pretty good moment. Definitely felt like I was a part of the hashtag Ramily.
Hey, I was trying to show him that the Rams might need a second tight end. That's all. And maybe another possession receiver in the red zone for you. You got a couple inches on me. So
yeah, I do.
Yeah. So what do you think about the Jalen Ramsey news? Of course, there's no real news, right?
That should be the headline. Demoff right now talking about how they get calls for every player and specifically said that they're not going to rule anything out. They're going to try to find a good destination for him. Alarming would be a good word that I would describe that. Scary and interesting because I've kind of been saying it all year. I've kind of gone back and forth and seeing the upside and seeing the downside. He's a player that, last year it felt like he progressed or regressed, but then if you look at the numbers, he actually had a pretty great year. It's hard to see like a future where they think they're going to be able to go all in and win another if you subtract Jalen Ramsey, which is why alarming is like the first word that comes to mind.
Yeah, so let me show you guys the video in case anybody hasn't seen the video yet on Kevin Demoff talking about Jalen Ramsey and the rest of the Rams' roster, how they've been, fielding calls, and every player is a great player. When you come off of a Super Bowl and then a down year, you could expect your phone to be busy. So I'm going to play the video and then we'll react to it live.
This program and how much of a priority is it to keep him?
Well, look, I think anytime you go from Super Bowl champions to a disappointing year, everybody's always wondering what's next. And for us, it's getting our players healthy. It's getting back to playing at the caliber we're at. Jalen's been a huge piece of what we've done. And I think for all of our players, it's going to be about figuring out what's best moving forward. But when you are a team like the Rams who's had success, we have a lot of great players. People are always inquiring about our talent, and it's not just Jalen. We get calls on all of our good players all the time, and the next few months we'll see what direction this team goes, but could not be more grateful for Jalen for what he's done for the Rams, leading this defense. And
dude, that's Charlie Day from Always Sunny, the gif where he's rubbing his head in his eyes and he doesn't know what the hell's going on. Stress.
How do you feel?
I feel like Jalen Ramsey is a player that is impactful to the entire defense. I feel like he's a player that's a part of the culture. He fits in well to any scheme. He's a part of the core. And unless you're getting rid of Jalen Ramsey in order to get back a first-round pick, to get back a proven commodity, a proven asset, and evidently have to be able to get in a better spot in terms of your cap, then that would be the only way that I would even consider having to move him. And Bleacher Report just put out a report that, if Jalen Ramsey's cut, who would be the teams that would be interested in bringing him in potentially? Why the hell would you ever cut Jalen Ramsey? You're going to have to eat some dead money. He's still under contract. It doesn't make any sense. If the likelihood would be that they would have to find a trade partner and then be able to get back the compensation that they would like in order to replace somebody of Jalen Ramsey's caliber. Listen, I think that the best way to put it, and I saw this on Twitter by our boy 3K, in other words, the Biako Saka liker, mentioned that was just word salad. When I think word salad's a really good way to describe it, because he was asked a question, and obviously there's not a definitive answer at this point. They don't know exactly what the trajectory of the roster is going to look like from now until March 15th when the league year starts. But my overall opinion is that he is one of the last players that I would want to see go. I think from a schematic standpoint, player that's versatile enough to be the best player in your man scheme, player that's versatile enough to be the best player in your zone scheme, and can rotate through multiple spots on the field. Like, can your top guy follow your top receiver? Can he blitz from the slot? Can he cover the slot? Like, he's one of the most versatile and skilled defensive backs of all time. So
yeah,
I would be as gutted as I was when the Rams cut Todd Gurley, but I was also understanding of what was going on in that moment and the severity of the injury. But what is your opinion on the whole situation?
Well, part of me feels like if he's on the block, I have a lot of faith in the GM, the organization. Snead has done a great job in his tenure to bring in talent, proven talent.
Yeah.
So, and Jalen Ramsey, like, no question, is a top caliber guy.
Yeah, he's the best example of that. Yep.
Yeah, and it wouldn't, like, it's not a situation where, like, Todd Gurley, where, and kind of Goff as well, where they have kind of been, like, pushing them out the door, like 100%, and have been like, they are regressing, or even Cam Akers. It's like, we need to move on from this person because there's nothing we can do. Like, it seems like they are still on good terms with Ramsey.
Yeah.
So a team will pay top dollar, I think, to bring in somebody like him. So you're in this kind of tricky situation because it's like, well, we could lose Jalen Ramsey, but, like, what's the turn? Like, are we trying not to rebuild? I mean, look at what the Chiefs did. They had like 10 or 12 players that were like pure rookies that came in and were impactful on that Super Bowl winning team. So maybe draft capital is a way to go. I know this isn't a big, like, receiver draft right now, but it's a pretty good defensive draft. It's a good offensive line draft. So, maybe like somebody that thinks they have the pieces, like a Detroit Lions or a New York Jets that want to, hunk up their defense, or even a Minnesota Vikings. They're a little Adam Thielen action coming in here and some Viking picks or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I think you brought up some really good points, is to where you trust the front office enough to where if you were to get rid of Jalen Ramsey, you would have faith in the proven commodities that would be coming into the building. My only fear is that if you say, for example, you traded for the 16th pick in the draft, like that was Aaron Donald 8 years ago, or 9 years ago, rather. Are you going to be able to draft that same kind of talent in that position to then rebuild the future core? Like that would be my understanding of the situation, is if you can potentially move on from Jalen Ramsey, and then that quick within the next couple of years, add another player into your core who's going to be on a rookie contract for his first 4 years, all the while bringing in another proven commodity, another proven asset. I think that there's some realism to it, and there's, it'll be devastating to Rams fans if it does happen. But this is the one front office, them, the Eagles, Kansas City. There aren't many others that you feel like could legitimately be able to rebound from something like this. But I think that people just forget with Jalen Ramsey that he was on a stretch for like 3 years. It was December of 2019. I remember he came in with the Rams. It didn't start off too hot. I think they were still trying to figure out exactly how to use him. And you saw Brandon Staley in 2020 just build the whole scheme around Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. But from December of 2019 all the way to the end of 2021, he was just completely shutting down the best receiver on your team. Like going into the 2022 season, there were only 2 receivers that had ever gone over 100 yards against Jalen Ramsey, and it was DeAndre Hopkins and Antonio Brown before the Rams had even acquired him. He was still in the Jaguars when that was happening. And then you get into the postseason of last year, you see Mike Williams go for 118 yards. You see what T. Higgins and Jamar Chase do to him in the Super Bowl, right? Obviously, there was the T. Higgins face mask, which would have negated 55 yards of yards that he ended up allowing in that
and
Super Bowl.
7 points.
Right, and 7 points, right. And DK Metcalf, like I just remember every single game I feel like Jalen Ramsey has ever gone against him, the numbers are definitive. It's 7 targets for 33 yards and no touchdowns and 3 catches. Like
Last year's the outlier, though.
Yeah. But he is like I truly believe that, like, he's one of the only players on an active roster and throughout the entire league that is so versatile that could essentially play any position on the field. Nick, this statistic is ridiculous. According to charting data from Pro Football Focus, PFF, which we all know and love, Ramsey saw 544 snaps as an outside corner, 325 snaps in the slot, and then another 131 snaps in the box, and even 30 snaps along the defensive front. And that was in the Super Bowl year. How many other defensive backs can do that? Are there any?
Yeah.
That's what you'd be getting rid of.
Yeah. I mean, just to kind of, you said it would be devastating to take away Jalen Ramsey. Let me just float some names by you that I think we would have said were devastating. Robert Woods, Todd Gurley, Brandon Cooks, even Jared Goff, to me, was personally devastating. And then the return and where they have come since then, the Super Bowl win from the ashes after losing those people. I mean, as much as we love Jalen Ramsey, he's not Kupp and he's not Donald. And those are like the true blue pillars that kind of have formed. And, Ramsey as well, Stafford as well. But I think dollars for donuts, I don't even know if that's a real expression, but most Rams fans, if you're like Donald and Kupp, Stafford and Ramsey, I think 10 out of 10 would lean Kupp and Donald, not to, choose children or anything like that. But I think that's kind of how it is right now.
So you brought up Cooks, you brought up Robert Woods, you brought up Todd Gurley and Jared Goff.
Yeah.
And I think if you were to and this may sound a bit brash, but if you combine the pain that you suffered after losing all four of those guys, to me, that would equate to losing Jalen Ramsey. Because Brand, to me, I'm just being honest, because that's how good I think Jalen Ramsey is. Brandon Cooks, 2 drops in the Super Bowl. Robert Woods coming off of an ACL injury. Todd Gurley coming off of degenerative knee disease. Jared Goff coming off of a couple of playoff berths where I personally didn't believe that he can get over the top. To me, Jalen Ramsey is still a part of the core. And for somebody that's as versatile as he is, I think for all fans that can't stand Raheem Morris and think that the defense is too passive and the coverage is too soft, like Jalen Ramsey is such a big part of that, to where some of the issues within the defense, some of the void, some of the zone vacancies, and some of the plays that they made that weren't caliber of the defense, like that's not on Jalen Ramsey. When a zone has to shift and you have to shift responsibility in real time and you have to be able to act upon instinct, like that is the kind of player that Jalen Ramsey is, that I'm fearful the Rams don't have enough in their back pocket on the remainder of their depth chart to be able to fill the void. Now, you don't know what you would get in return, so we can kind of talk circles around this. But just in terms of comparisons, like Tariq Woolen, Sauce Gardner, do any of the rookies have that capability to be able to line up as an outside corner, in the slot, in the box, on the defensive line? Like, can Jair Alexander do that? Can Xavier Howard do that? Can Darius Slay or James Bradbury do any of that stuff? Like, to me, that like when you have to replace Jalen Ramsey, you essentially have to replace 2 or 3 players, to me. But I mean, maybe some others see it differently.
Yeah, and the argument I have is that you could replace like those 2 to 3, players, essentially, like what he brings to the table with other people. And then like on the inverse, let's say somehow, and I know you brought him up, and this is kind of something that I've been seeing because I don't know why, but he's been photoshopped in a Rams jersey all day. Like DeAndre Hopkins, like straight up for Jalen Ramsey. Like, I don't know. Like that feels like a fair deal right there. I don't think the Cardinals will trade in division, but it would just be kind of funny to see them still in the same division, but just
it's such a good question. It really is. And it's definitely a massive thought starter, because like I start to think about, would you want Devontae Adams? Would you want DeAndre Hopkins? Like, who can you pair with Cooper Kupp to evolve the offense to the next level? And there's such a focus on offensive philosophy with this team, and the defense itself with Raheem Morris could potentially add a couple of pieces. We're going to get into maybe Jimmy Lake and Aubrey Pleasant and some other pieces that could help round out the defensive coaching staff. But this team seems like it's all about offense. and you know that they're going to eventually draft another running back, another receiver. Like they're going to go on offensive line. Like when you need an edge rusher, when you need a second corner. So it's all going to come down to priority when you dig into it. And this is going to be in one of our future episodes, just going through everybody that Sean McVay has drafted in comparison to some of the coaches that he's brought in and some of the universities they're tied to, like Washington, Eastern Washington. So I think that it's a continued conversation that's to be had. But like just for example, if you were to lose Jalen Ramsey, I think that it's if it's not for somebody like DeAndre Hopkins or Devontae Adams or a top tier player at their position, then I can't pull the trigger. Just can't even think about pulling the trigger.
I mean, I could see it for somebody like a Thielen and picks. I think even though Thielen
I don't want anything to do with Adam Thielen.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of
not for anything, but the whole
C-level
offense is
receiver
white.
essentially.
Do we need
like some kind of skill player?
Yeah, we got Skoranek, you got Austin Trammell, you got Cooper
Kupp, come on.
You got
Thielen is better than Ben Skoranek.
Tyler
You
Higbee.
need to say that out loud.
I know. I'm just saying. It's a little strange.
It would be something like, and I think he's a free agent, but like Josh Jacobs and some stuff like that would be interesting. I don't know.
Well, Josh Jacobs is going to be a free agent, and I think they may franchise tag him. But if he has the option where there's a different kind of franchise tag where you could still offer picks to be able to trade for the player, that could be something that's in play. But yeah, we're at the very end of the season, and we're 4 or 5 days removed from the Super Bowl, and there's already conversation about Jalen Ramsey in a Raiders jersey, in a Packers jersey. I've seen fans Photoshop jerseys on Jalen Ramsey consistently throughout the entire day.
I think that would be personally my favorite destination for him if he were to leave. I feel like he'd be a great Raider. That'd be really, really cool to see, especially if Rodgers went there too, and then to give Mahomes some disruption in that division. I think that'd be really fun.
I'm just not ready for it. I don't want to see it happen.
I mean, look, this team has followed since McVay and Snead have been together, and even Demoff has followed the Patriot way in terms of, if you're replaceable, we're going to find somebody that can replace you. And if we're going to get more for you, if we're going to more on the dollar than what we think you're currently worth right now, we're going to get it. So,
yeah.
I mean, I truly, the only two people I feel like that are untouchable, and I guess three because of the contract, are Stafford, Kupp, and Donald. And I really don't think anybody else is particularly comfortable. I mean, you saw what they did with Henderson last season.
Yeah.
Before the season even ended, because he was going to be a free agent. He's just not
Jalen Ramsey. So 2023. I know you know that. I'm just saying those guys aren't even like Darrell Henderson's not even in kind of the same conversation. But like for cap purposes, so 2023 dead cap pre 6/1 release, it would be a cap savings of negative 6.9 million. So you would lose 6.9 million if you released them before June 1st. So shame on Bleacher Report for even putting out that dumb fucking graphic. Because there's absolutely no sense. You go pre 6/1 trade, the Rams could potentially save $5.6 million. So there's some merit to that. If he gets traded before June 1st, there's a $5.6 million savings. That totally makes sense to me. Post 6/1 release would be a $4.5 million savings. So if he did get released after June 1st, the Rams could save $4.5 million. And then if he's traded post June 1st, it's a $17 million cap savings. So I think the likelihood is that for the Rams to not have to eat a ton of dead money, I think the likelihood is that he would get traded after June 1st because it is the largest potential savings that the Rams could add towards their cap. So to me, that makes sense. His potential out, Jalen Ramsey, after he signed a 4-year deal in 2020, takes him from 2020 to 2024 or 2021 to 2024, is in 2024, the 4-year, $75,790,079. There is a dead cap hit of $11.4 million. Okay. So, yeah.
Yeah. There is reason behind the conversation.
Sure.
Is all I'm saying. I mean, personally, I would like to see him back, particularly because we got Raheem back.
Yeah.
And I know that they work well together. And then when you have, like a healthy Aaron Donald and you bring, Nick Scott back and everybody that was on that kind of Super Bowl winning team.
Yep.
Outside of the injuries, you can see why you would be excited for the running back situation. But, I'm just not ruling anything out, and I'm not going to, I'm mentally preparing myself.
No, you're smart. You're smart to do that, because I just think back to the interview where Jalen Ramsey was like, Ra, fire. We fucking love Ra. We respect Ra. We don't want him to go anywhere. If he was a head coach somewhere else, then that would be a huge loss for us. And the fact that he is coming back, I think that proves that there's a higher likelihood that Jalen Ramsey is retained. And then maybe after this year, you look to move on, but it's still I think you're doing the right thing.
If he has a big regression year, then you're going to get pennies on the dollar for him next year.
Sure.
And then you're in a situation where you need capital. So
yep. You want to trade somebody before their stock drops. And if it's at the highest, and it is at the highest it can be right now, because nobody's looking at last year saying, oh, Jalen Ramsey had a down year, he can't play anymore. It's ridiculous to even think. All right. Sharp transition outside of the Jalen Ramsey conversation, Nick. There are 3 names that I feel like can complete the Rams' coaching staff. And in those 3 names lies Jimmy Lake, Aubrey Pleasant, and Big Whit, Andrew Whitworth. The reason why I say that, they're just 3 names that I would absolutely love to have on board. Jordan had mentioned in one of her, I think it was a tweet today, and she'd also mentioned in former articles, as she's been reporting on this for the last month or so, that the team is expected to formalize the staff structure over the next week or so. So by this time next week, we should have a full understanding of where everybody's going to be. Jimmy Lake was a guy that visited with the Rams as a guest of Raheem Morris in the offseason. He's been with Washington for the last 3 or 4 years, but just to pick the brains of some of the staff. And they usually do host a few college coaches. And like I mentioned, he's from Washington, but he also has some connection to, I think it was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So he was the Buccaneers defensive backs coach 2006, 2007. And then the Lions in 2008, and then the Bucs again from 2010 to 2011. So he was fired from Washington for a strange altercation on the sideline where it looked like a whole scrum was moving towards the sidelines, and the referee tried to get involved, and he was responsible for separating it. But I don't think that's a reason why anybody should judge the guy. I think that in terms of personality, he's very, very fiery. You could see why him and Raheem Morris get along. And I think it's really going to be interesting. He's been connected to them for an assistant coaching role since about mid-January, as Jordan reported. So I'm interested to see how quick that development happens, and how quickly you could potentially get him into an assistant role while also overseeing the defense. Because, Rams, the way that they like to do it is hybrid duty and double duty, right? So at one point, Nick, here's a fun fact. As Jimmy Lake is coming from Washington, at one point the Rams had about 15% of their roster players that played college football in the state of Washington, right? So it's another thing to keep an eye on. You bring Jimmy Lake in, you look at Washington, you look at Eastern Washington, obviously Cooper Kupp from Eastern Washington, Taylor Rapp from Washington University. So there's a lot of good pieces that have came from Washington, and you potentially could leverage Jimmy Lake to be able to have an in with some of those players in getting priority in terms of pre-draft interview and all those kind of conversations that happen behind the scenes. Corey Littleton, Marcus Peters, Taylor Rapp, Greg Gaines, Coleman Shelton, those are all Washington guys, right? So, that's the hope, is you bring in Jimmy Lake, and then you could potentially poach from the University of Washington or former players that played under Jimmy Lake at Washington.
Yeah, and, McVay kind of got his start in that area too.
Yep.
On the Commanders, formerly Redskins.
Not the Commanders. It was it's Washington College.
Oh, right.
Yeah, Pleasant. You're thinking of Aubrey Pleasant. He's the one that has the ties back to the Commanders.
Right.
Yep. So,
but McVay too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Pleasant and McVay have ties going back to 2013 and 2014 in Washington. So Pleasant is another guy that I would love to have back. Was just with the Packers this past season. He was the offensive consultant for the Packers, but has a lot of experience coaching defensive backs and being a pass game coordinator, right? So when he was with the Rams 2017 to 2020, he coached with McVay all the way back in Washington, Nick, as we mentioned, from 13 to 14, he was an offensive assistant. And then the following year, he was a defensive quality control coach. So talk about versatility. This is the Jalen Ramsey of coaching.
Yeah, he's everywhere. Wait, say that again. I missed it. He's the
I
what?
said, talk about versatility. He's the Jalen Ramsey of coaching.
Oh, I thought you said Jim Henson. I was like, yeah.
No, Jim Henson, very versatile. Brian Henson, also very versatile as well. If you've ever seen Creature Shop of Horror, whatever the hell it's called.
Creature Shop.
It's just called Creature Shop Challenge.
Yeah, Jim Henson's Creature Shop Challenge.
Yeah, if you ever have a couple of minutes, go on the Sci-Fi Channel and watch the Creature Shop Challenge by Brian Henson. It's essentially like Chopped, but they create these animatronic puppets. Fascinating.
It was one of the coolest things. One of my favorite TV viewing shows of all time. me and Dean watched it. We discovered it one day and watched 7 episodes in a row. It was fantastic.
Yeah, do yourself an favor, pop an edible, and get comfortable on the couch and watch Brian Henson's Creature Shop Challenge. Okay, so there's 2 names, 2 of 3 I've listed. I got Pleasant and I got Jimmy Lake, who I think there's a very high likelihood that they are on the staff by this time.
And then the best name you didn't even talk about.
The best name. Okay, so Big Wit.
Your wife's favorite Ram.
I mean, everybody's favorite Ram. Our mom's favorite Ram. Our dad's everybody's favorite Ram. I want him back in the building so badly. And with Zach Cromer just getting a promotion and Ryan Wendell now coming into the building, I want them to build up that offensive line staff so that they can truly continuously identify and develop talent. Because the Rams don't have enough capital to be able to bring in a second defensive back if you keep Ramsey, a top caliber edge rusher. I was just thinking today, cut Terrell Lewis, and then we're going to reshuffle the draft again and probably take another edge rusher in the 3rd round. There's too many pieces that are missing, which is why I feel like you truly have to build up this staff. If you got Big Wit, you got Wendell, you got Zach Cromer, Aaron Cromer's son, who's recently been promoted. Seems like he wants to stick it to his dad and stay with the Rams under Sean McVay because he's such a great coach instead of going to Buffalo, where I'm sure he had offers. I want Andrew Whitworth in the building so bad. I want him in the room right now. I got to be honest. He's that great.
Andrew, get out here. I mean, I feel like if you have Whitworth on the team, he's going to be working out with everybody. And then if you get to the playoffs, there's going to be a situation like Burt Reynolds in The Longest Yard, where he's like, put me in. Puts the helmet on. One fullback play.
Is that the OG Longest Yard? Because wasn't he the quarterback of The Longest Yard in the first movie, Burt Reynolds?
Yeah, I'm talking about
You're talking about the remake. That's on TBS every single night. That one?
Yeah. TBS somehow feels like there aren't enough Adam Sandler movies in the world because TBS.
What the hell was Just Go With It was on a loop.
That's on every day.
Yeah, every day it's on. Every day.
You can, if you turn the television on, you can watch The Office and just go with it right now. I guarantee it.
Oh, that is so the truth. That is so the truth. Okay, going back to the staff. We mentioned it's going to be completed by this time next week. Thomas Brown. I'm concerned. I feel like he's going to Carolina. I feel like we're going to get the news any second. I personally think that he does get the job. And McVay has mentioned multiple times that he feels like he could be a head coach. And if he's an integral part of the Panthers offensive scheme in developing that, in drafting another quarterback in collaboration with Frank Reich, and they still only win 5 or 6 games, there's your new head coach of the Carolina Panthers. So to me, that's a no. I'm taking the job if I'm Thomas Brown. Carolina's not a bad place to live.
No, I mean, it's probably fantastic. I just a lot of that job is going to go into what they do with the quarterback position. And I know Derek Carr could potentially go there, and they may have to draft somebody. But Frank Reich is probably so tired of the quarterback carousel that he's had to deal with.
You would think,
as a head coach. So I think if you draft somebody, it's a more appealing job. If you bring in Derek Carr, you may feel a little pigeonholed to the situation that you're in. And then you may want to hold off 1 year and be like, well, maybe I just go back to what I was doing. So,
Yep.
Oh, so
that happens. Yeah.
I think all of that stuff is being discussed right now, and we'll find out soon what's up with Derek Carr.
Yeah. Some of those top assistants. And I don't know if Derek Carr is going to go to the Saints. Maybe the Panthers are in play. But like all these assistants, Eric Henderson, if he's retained, Zach Robinson, if he's retained, and Thomas Brown, I think puts the Rams in a much better spot for next year. I feel like I'm very possessive about these guys. Like I don't want them to go anywhere else because I know that they're just climbing the rankings year after year. And I want them to be, I want the staff to be a lot of homegrown guys that have developed, that are young and show the ability to be a head coach in this league one day. And I think that's what the trajectory that they're on, I feel like is right in line with that. The Bucs are not hiring Thomas Brown. He was interviewing with the Bucs, and after interviewing with him on Wednesday, they decided to go with Dave Canales as an offensive coordinator. He's replacing Byron Leftwich. Byron Leftwich. He came from Seattle. He was the Seahawks quarterbacks coach. So now he's leaving the NFC West and going to the NFC South. So interesting there that the Bucs decided to pass up on him. Maybe he was too similar to Byron Leftwich, or they didn't feel like he was a unanimous standout offensive coordinator. Doesn't have any experience calling plays. So maybe that was the holdup. And maybe there was, something about Canales that, he had experience with Carroll, and, who knows what that could be. Maybe he took responsibility over from Shane Waldron, who came from the Rams. But they're not certain that he's going to be retained. And with the interview happening today, I know the Panthers hired Parks Frazier as their pass game coordinator, but that doesn't mean that Thomas Brown can't be added as the offensive coordinator. So something we will continue to monitor, and hopefully by this time next week, we'll have a full breakdown of what exactly the staff is going to look like. But I have a good feeling of what it's going to look like.
I'm sure we will. Everything starts to come out now. The season's over. There's going to be a lot of quick decisions made before it gets, up and running again.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the last thing, Nick, if you're okay with it, that I wanted to address. You're okay. That I wanted to address in this episode is the staff changes over the last 6 years. And I think this will be quick, but just the amount of coaches that have been poached. I look back at Ari's Twitter, and he had something on all the coaches that have been poached from the Rams. And I went to go back to compile a list because I didn't think that it was entirely accurate. I feel like there were a couple guys that were missing. Some guys weren't poached. Some guys were actually fired or were told to go take a walk. But just in this year, 8 staff members, we talked about this in previous episodes, but just reiterating, 8 staff members after this season were asked to take a walk / go look for another job. It was Joe DiCamillo, special teams coach, offensive line coach Kevin Carberry, defensive backs coach Jonathan Cooley, assistant defensive line coach Skylar Jones, defensive assistant Lance Schulters. All those guys were let go. And then there's outside linebackers coach Thad Bergardis, whose contract was up and it will not be renewed. And then offensive coordinator Liam Cohn, we know, went back to Kentucky. And then running backs coach Rashad Samples of Arizona State. They both left for other jobs, him and Liam Cohn. And Samples' departure was technically in season. But looking at the years, 2022 was Ejiro Evero, the first year without Ejiro Evero, Marcus Dixon, Kevin O'Connell, and Wade Phillips. And you're seeing this happen in the league where we were so nervous about Raheem Morris leaving. Kevin O'Connell took Wade Phillips' son with him and is an offensive assistant there in Minnesota. And that's the same thing that Ejiro Evero did with Marcus Dixon. And then 2021, we lost Pleasant, Shane Waldron, Joe Barry, Brandon Staley. 2020 was Cromer and Skip Pete. 2019 was Zach Taylor and Greg Olson, who Greg Olson actually returned in 2022. But then Matt LaFleur, who they've been looking to replace for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So
and not really being able to. I mean, O'Connell, I think was.
Yeah, they replaced him with O'Connell. Yeah,
O'Connell did a really good job. So I mean, and then you're bringing back a LaFleur. So hopefully the whole thing just kind of resets itself on offense. I feel comfortable in the direction that they are headed. I think the most stable thing is finally keeping a DC for a couple years can allow a lot of familiarity in the building. So, not a lot of people can get poached. I mean, look at what happened to the Eagles, lost their offensive coordinator and their defensive coordinator. And that they're going to take a lot of those assistant guys with them. So it's going to be difficult. It was smart of them because they just promoted their QB coach to offensive coordinator because him and Jalen have known each other for a while. But that's the kind of stuff that really, the average person that is following the Eagles, I mean, you see the free agents, they have 13. It's going to be tough for them to, come back from that. But the coaching thing, that may even hit harder. Like that's the kind of stuff that you get gouged. And not even under McVay has he lost the offensive and defensive coordinator in the same year.
Yeah.
So we'll see what kind of coach Sirianni really is. I saw a poll today that was ranking Sirianni above McVay, and I was like, I don't really think that's fair to either of them. Sirianni's been in the league 2 years. So it's, we'll see how his career goes. But McVay couldn't get the Super Bowl in year 2 either. So I would say their paths are very similar right now. So I don't think it's fair to say one is truly better than the other. But another huge part of me is saying McVay is way better.
Oh, yeah. I would think so, too. I feel like McVay has done – he's more proven, obviously, won the Super Bowl and has done more with less. But Sirianni also needs the same sample size that you could actually compare properly, right? And I think in 2019, the year after we lost the Super Bowl, was the most devastating. And there were a lot of internal hires. There were a lot of guys that got promoted. There were a lot of times on the offensive line where we had internal promotions. Guys that were lower on the depth chart were forced to step up and start. Until you got Austin Corbett in the middle of the season. I think it wasn't until like late October, early November in 19, the offensive line looked like it was totally incapable of doing anything. So, those are all gut punches, Nick. And you're talking about just getting gouged. Like you lose an offensive coordinator, you lose a defensive coordinator. You have to pay a $50 million quarterback per year. Like Jalen Hurts is going to be economically extraordinarily expensive to have to handle him. But you get in at the right time. Look, the Patrick Mahomes deal looks like a bargain right now.
Yeah, but, it's crazy. It's crazy.
It's crazy. And that was a 10-year, $500 million deal, right?
Yeah.
So, I think it's so interesting when your team gets gouged and when you're, and then you have to rebuild over the next couple of years with your staff and your team. So,
yeah,
I'm interested to see how it all goes.
Insane how Bieniemy has been able to stay there this whole time.
So you brought up Washington earlier. It sounds like Bieniemy's going to the Commanders.
Head coach?
No. Offense coordinator. Yeah. Well,
why would you stay? Lateral move.
I don't know. So there's a belief that he's never going to get a head coaching job if he never calls an offense. So everybody thinks that it's 100% Andy Reid. I think there's a pretty solid split.
Kevin O'Connell got one.
That's what I'm saying. In terms of, Kevin O'Connell never called plays. Matt Nagy never called plays. Like there's a lot of examples of guys that never, ever called plays that ended up getting a head coaching job. And it's bizarre. And Bieniemy is one of those guys that is clearly capable. Like you think he'll be able to go to Washington with Sam Howell and Ron Rivera and win 10 games? Possibly. Yeah.
Racism. The NFL is racist.
Yeah, I know. It's bullshit.
It's ridiculous.
I fucking hate that.
He doesn't have a head.
I have to be honest. Yeah, like the Colts. Step up and hire Raheem. Step up and hire Eric Bieniemy. Like go against your racist ways and start abiding by the fact that a lot of these guys are fully qualified to coach your team.
I think the best thing the Vikings did was bring in Flores.
Yeah, Brian Flores. Yeah.
Oh my God. I watched his presser today. It just felt like electric. And I was like, oh, you run through a brick wall. But that's going to be a tough division with the Lions. So that'll be fun.
He's kind of the opposite of Raheem Morris, right? He's kind of all business, all seriousness all the time. Wants to coach aggressively. Kevin O'Connell was talking about coaching aggressively.
Every picture I've ever seen of Raheem, he's smiling and happy.
Just massive ear-to-ear smile. I know. He's got a great smile. I don't blame him. But yeah, I know. When it's time to buckle down, maybe that's where some of the fear kind of trickles in. So.
Washington would be such a tough place to go. I mean, who's their starting quarterback right now?
Sam Howell.
It's the kid.
Yeah, the kid.
The
kid who I felt like I watched maybe 3 series of him in the final game of the season and was like, he's going to be good.
Dean texting our family group chat. Washington has got their guy. Watch out, Eagles fans. All this stuff, and I was like,
just wait and see.
NFC East stock, even though it's at an all-time high right now, is going to just continue to soar higher. I think if you like most of the teams in that division, or 3 of them, I'll say, could be division leaders. Like Dallas is a division leader, Eagles is a division leader, obviously. Giants in like another division in the South are a division leader. And then who knows if they get Bieniemy and this kid's actually really good, then they could. I would see them. I like to buy some Washington stock right now.
The scary thing is that's what everybody said. That's why everybody said that. What was I going to say? Sam Howell and completely forget what I was going to say.
No.
Maybe that's how we'll end it. What were you talking about just before?
The NFC East and
beyond. Oh, the East. Yeah, the West. I feel like everybody thought that the West was going to be great this year, and then everything flips. Right? It's like you thought the West was going to be great, and then the Rams win 5 games, the Cardinals win 5. So
2 playoff teams.
It could definitely fluctuate. Yeah, that's true.
2 playoff teams. One of them went to the NFC Championship, so I would say that the West was still pretty good. No thanks.
And everybody thought the AFC West was going to be awesome. Remember
Denver? That's the big one.
Yeah, probably a better example.
Yeah, because then but same situation. 2 teams in the playoffs, one bounced first round, and then the other made it to the conference championship, and then the freaking Chiefs won. So
yeah,
kind of very, very similar.
Exactly.
And then one last thing, Bet Online. Don't forget, live betting, free contests, giveaways all season long. Always the fastest, easiest way to bet all your favorite sports and events, whether that's NFL, NBA, NHL, MMA, tennis, boxing, or even golf. Head to betonline.ag to join and receive your 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use our promo code BLEAV to receive your rewards. Bet Online, where the game starts. Dean, I am going to announce the winners of our giveaway. Oh my God! Oh, there's the promo code. So
we have two winners.
I got 2 winners. I looked online. The hats are exactly $6, but with shipping and handling, it comes out to $15. So you know what? I think it's okay.
I'm
sorry that I thought these were like $40 all season, and as soon as they lose, another team wins the Super Bowl, it just plummets down in price. I'm sorry, I didn't know that, but anyway, David Bruce, I got one here for you, and then where's my other one? Another David Kenyon. I got these 2 hats. They're going to come out to you. I'm going to reach out, get your address, guys, and then we're going to do another 2 next Thursday. And just comment. I like that. Comment on the YouTube video, and you'll be entered in to win the next giveaway. And like and subscribe. Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Dean, I'm also going to send you one because I don't know the next time I'm going to be back home. So 3 hats going out. Let's check how many we have left.
Fantastic.
We got like 5, 6. So
good.
Yeah.
Well, as always, thank you guys for listening, and listen to Nick. Make sure to comment on the YouTube video, like and subscribe, show your support. If you've enjoyed this video,
I'm paying to send these out. So, so not only are you saving money from buying this like a $15 hat, you're also taking money from my pocket. So, maybe just do it for that. Just do it for that alone.
Support Nick. He needs a new hat.
Yeah, no, I'm supporting them, but yeah. Support us by liking the video and subscribing.
Yes, exactly. Like, comment, subscribe, join the movement. Thank you guys for listening.
Take care,
Talk to
everybody.
you soon.
Go Rams.
Go Rams.